Well, I think I would just want to tell a short story, and it happened this past academic year, where so our ministry center is in a former Anglican church, with the stained glass and everything. And one of the things that we do is we have a jam night, and I'm not talking about strawberries, but we open up the church and students bring their musical instruments, and we just hang out on a Monday evening and play music. So on one of these jam nights, I noticed a student. She was kind of sitting off to the side, and she was staring at the stained glass window. And I went over to her, and I asked her if everything was okay. Um, and she was still staring at the stained glass, and she pointed to the stained glass, and it was a stained glass of Jesus. And she said, "Is that Jesus?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "Well, this might sound kind of weird, but he spoke to me." Now, in the course of the conversation, I found out that she came from a completely non-religious background, not anti-religious, but just it was not a part of her life growing up. And so I was like, "Oh, okay. Um, well, what did you hear?" And she got rather emotional, actually, and she said, "Well, I've been sitting here for 20 minutes, and I've just been hearing over and over again that I am loved." And this sparked a series of conversations that I had with her. But this conversation comes back to me so often because it's so emblematic, I think, of well, what we're trying to do among university students, but I think what is kind of like the potential for church today. And that is that for so long we have done church where you have to believe the right things, you have to behave the right way, and then you can be a part of the church community. And this experience with this student reminded me, most importantly, that Jesus is at work. Jesus is at work even today, outside of where we might expect him to be at work, like in this student's life who'd like really never been in a church before in her life except for like a family funeral or whatever. Um, and here she had this experience of the love of God through this stained glass of Jesus. And so that was key for me. But what this meant for me in terms of ministry and what I would want to encourage all of us to kind of think about is my welcome of her and her experience is what started something that eventually led to belief and behavior. But it all started with belonging. And I'm not trying to answer all of the thorny social or theological questions that we have, about how we do ministry today. But I do know that in our ministry, Jesus is calling us to open ourselves in a very, very vulnerable way to students who come from a wide diversity of backgrounds, and to simply be with them as Jesus reaches out to them and encounters them, and then to be there with them as they, to be with these students as they process that experience. So, it's been said, in the past, we believe, then we behave, and then we belong. And I'm really noticing that as we as a ministry shift our focus to belonging, God is doing incredible things in the lives of students. And they do come to believe and behave and all of that. But it really does start with a generous and a radical hospitality to the people who are in our communities. So that's what I would think about when I would think about that question.